Good morning. I'm Shelley with Dreamcatcher Career Coaching, and this is my podcast, Young Professionals Career Catalyst. My guest today is Mark Anthony Dyson, a freelance writer of career-related articles for Forbes, Entrepreneur, and Business Insider, and the host of a podcast called The Job Scam Report. Mark is otherwise known as the voice of job seekers. Welcome to the Young Professionals Career Catalyst, Mark. So excited to speak with you today.
Great to speak with you as well. Should I just clarify? I've contributed to those publications as a guest, not as a writer.
Oh,
So I just want to make that clear that I don't write for all three. I know people who do and have written for all three, but not me.
okay.
I'm not quite there yet. I'm still growing up.
Okay. Sounds good. Obviously, you do a lot of conversations around job scams and a lot of articles around that topic. What was your major in college?
My major in college was communication.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
You could say that I am doing what I'm supposed to do, but
Right.
it didn't quite work at the path to that didn't quite work out that way because I took some twists and turns in that matter, but that was my degree.
Okay. And did you have were you envisioning doing something specific with that degree?
There was a lot of things I wanted to do. There was never just one thing I wanted to do, but I did get it. I started out in college with that major doing some radio,
Okay.
college radio. And I
Okay.
got a chance to do that. I did little college TV as well, both as a reporter. They called it something else then. I don't know. I forgot what the name was, but that's what it was. So
Mhm.
I started out there, but then after I graduated and then after I left the radio station, decided to do some other thing that did retail management for a while. Eventually led me to doing some association work as in customer service, then eventually got in leadership in those capacities. There you go. That's about 20, 25 years worth right there.
We all have those little twists and turns in our careers,
Yeah.
as it takes a while to end up in that perfect spot.
And I
So,
did other things too. Full disclosure, I had probably about 23, 24 jobs. That's the way it is. And I think a lot of this generation is going to have that as well. They're going to have that challenge. And they're already taking on that challenge by, we know, the job hopping, which I think will eventually make its way back by the end of
yes.
the year. But that's a whole nother discussion. I don't want to take you on a tangent.
Okay. So you've been working in the career development sphere for quite a while. How did you first get involved in?
By accident, my brother-in-law had thought I wrote well enough to where he said, "Why don't you write resumes? You can do that. You write this stuff. You can do resumes." So I did and accidentally followed the trail of learning the modern techniques of writing resumes and eventually built a business around it and got out of resume writing because of the voice of job seekers. So the voice of job seekers took me another journey. So that was fun to be a part of and to experience the evolution. So here I am as the voice of job seekers. We'll get into everything else as you go along.
Okay. So the Better Business Bureau claims that job scams are costing job seekers $2 billion in losses annually.
Mhm.
So populations get scammed most frequently.
The more frequent population of people who are getting scammed are the young people.
Right.
Young people, we're talking about the Gen Zs and the millennials have gotten scammed a lot more. Now, the nuance of it is the older people are getting scammed too, but they're getting scammed with more money
Okay.
as opposed to younger people getting scammed more frequently.
Okay. And I think it's just that their desperation for trying to launch that career that makes the young folks more susceptible to these job scams.
Correct. Yes. And I think a lot of them are into entertaining more opportunities. Wish more of them were more thoughtful and strategic about their moves, which they can't be. And a lot of them are, but a lot of people in this economy have gotten caught up in the obstacles and how tough it is, ghost jobs and going through multiple rounds of interviews. And so when you get somebody that says, "Hey, you should look at this opportunity, you're perfect for it," it sounds really good, but what
Yep.
scammers use is social engineering. They bait you with something that you want so that you can get so they can get what they want, which is your personal information.
Yes, yes. So, what caused you to become so interested in job scams?
About a couple of years ago, I was starting to write articles about it, and I get notes from job seekers. Even though I write mostly and I don't do career coaching and I'm not writing resumes, so I'm not actively in it. I'm passively in it because since I dabble in that space and I network heavily in that space and I write on LinkedIn about job search and careers, I get the questions, I get the inquiries. So it led me down a path to where people were really getting scammed in a different way that we'd never seen before. So I
Right.
started to follow the story and followed one story down where I wrote something for lensa.com about job phishing. And that is where the technology that we have today enables us to mock companies and build websites that kind of look like companies. Now,
Yes.
the websites can't be the same. That's why you'll see if it's IBM, somebody will put IBBM.com, for instance. Or that might be exaggeration, but large in part, that's what people eyes and ears they want to see that
Right.
and they wanna believe, so they just go along and they went along and they got job fished and job fishing eventually means like catfishing for jobs. They built an illusion that something exists, but it really doesn't. So this
Right.
whole thing therefore, people start to get scammed out of their personal information and their cash. Now, most people think that cash is the reason why, and that's the loss. The real gold mine in this whole thing is your personal information because it could be reused and repurposed over and over again. And someone else collects a long list and they sell it off to other scammers or sell it off to other places where will make money.
Right.
And things have many layers, but that's how I got started was with that article. And then I started to follow a little bit more and I wrote another article the following year for the same publication. And that time I talked about job scams and how to avoid them.
Mhm.
And I think the articles are 10 ways. And then what I did after the article, believe it or not, I went and made Google alerts following scams. So I became that storm chaser but with job scams. And I
Right.
started to look at every articles every day. And there were multiple articles every day, not just here in the United States, but around the world. So people there were different dynamics and there were different ways that people were being scammed, not just one.
Mhm.
And people who right now, you can put in the Better Business Bureau scam tracker and
Okay.
right now, there's more than 30, almost 35 reported incidents of job scams and different types of scams.
Yes.
So if you really want to see what the trends are in scams, which I think everybody should at least take a look one time to see what's happening, although you can look at LinkedIn and get an idea of what's really relevant. But all I have to say is that's how I got on that path to look at what scams were about and how important they are to the
Mm.
safety of our culture period, but the job seekers especially, since they're the most vulnerable in this whole thing.
So the purpose is obviously to get your personal information. So, what are some ways that they're using that information to carry out their scam?
The way that you're talking about the scammers, how they're using that personal information, one of the scariest things that people can do is to be an imposter of you. So
Okay.
let's say they've got your personal information, they got your social security, phone number, and other ID information, they can go act as you and apply to a whole bunch of jobs that you'll eventually get turned down for, more than likely, or you may get hired
Mhm.
and that scammer builds a bad reputation in your name with your information. So therefore, they become you in a sense from afar because scammers are basically in their pajamas in some other country with 40,000 people on their laptop pretending that they could be at a large scale. So for you, you could be applying to a job in companies that you want, and you've been blacklisted. You're not getting any response, and you
Oh my,
don't know why. That's where one of the lows can actually lead you and condemn you for good.
wow. I never really thought of it that way.
It's already happening. It's
Mhm.
already something that's really prevalent in our society, and there's other things that scammers can do with your information. Like I said, they can sell it to another scammer,
Right.
or they can hack your Zelle accounts, your Cash Apps accounts, if they had the right information. They can build other accounts in your name that you're not supposed to have and scam other people, get caught, knowing that the laws are probably minimized and what they can do to certain scammers. And don't get me wrong, the FBI is very involved in these scams, but they're after the ring. They're
Okay.
after the scam ring. For individuals who are losing $2,000, $3,000, they're gonna take note of it, but that's not their priority.
Right.
Their priority are the six-figure scams. So they're gonna look after the rings and how it's organized so that people get on, but you should still report it because you want to report it to those entities that you put on those applications or that you gave to that fake scammer. Security number, you of course call the Social Security Department, let them know your bank, you gave them your banking information. Absolutely. You give credit card, you call it that institution, and all the institutions that are important that you gave as personal information that nobody is supposed to have.
Right.
You want to call those entities and report it. And then we can go even further down the road than that. But all that to say is that there's a great amount of damage that can be done and may have been done to a whole lot of people that they don't know about. And at least you should be aware and you start documenting your tracks.
Absolutely. So, what types of job scams have you seen most recently?
Let me give you this several that, man, there's a lot of them that are out there to point to one. Let me give you a scenario of how this, and this was from an article from a few months ago.
Okay.
You may not have heard of resume looters.
No.
Resume, a lot of people don't because it happened over across the way, across seas. And those who watch it internationally, I won't go through, but if you look up resume looters, there's a few articles about it. What they were able to do, they were able to hack
Okay.
job portals as well, like the career builders, except it was in that particular country.
Mhm.
And they were able to get more than 30,000 personal information that people either put on applications or on resumes.
Oh my.
And as we know from like different viruses and things like that, what happens over there is going to happen over here.
Sure.
So that's why not just job seekers need to be concerned, but also employers need to be concerned as well.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
because we can, that's a whole nother discussion, but focusing on job seekers, again, those personal information, that it can come back to haunt you in ways that you don't even realize. So
Right.
that's why you have to take precaution for everything. So the question you'll get then is, well, should I stop applying with job portals? No, because unfortunately, it's a catch 22. Recruiters and employers rely on these portals because that's how
Right.
the jobs filled. So not that, but you can be more careful in the way that you mask that information. So
Mhm.
that's going to cause some inconveniences for a lot of folks. But on a large scale, that's how scams are going to affect job seekers, a larger part from things that may not be in your control to begin with. You did all the right things.
Right.
Unfortunately, there are people whose intent is contrary to yours as far
Right.
as getting a job.
Yeah. It's such a shame that you have to be this paranoid. It's really a shame.
I think people can avoid some of the paranoia if you consider that a lot of people mass apply to jobs on job boards.
Yes.
Or right? And they've done it for years. Now, I've been in the game 15 years, and me and a lot of my colleagues and people are in our industry have been saying, "Stop it," for years, but people continue to do it. So, they don't remember what jobs they applied to because I applied that and I've gotten comments still to this day. I've applied to 500 jobs in the last 3 months. And Lord knows if you can just you can't take that information, put on those applications and
Mhm.
resumes. You just can't take that back. And instead of just being more intentional and researching the company, make sure the company is real, make
Mhm.
sure they're legal, make sure
Right.
you don't have a whole bunch of reviews and complaints. And you could do that by putting in the company name and put reviews, scams, like that.
Okay.
Narrow it down to a list of several. It could be you can have $50 50 jobs or 50 companies on that list, but you know they're real companies who and I would pick the ones that really care about how they are treating job seekers and how they're treating your data.
Right.
We don't have to go down, but that's make that part of your criteria and concentrate getting into those companies so you spend more time getting to know employees, finding out it's going to be the right company for you to get as much intel so that you can base your answers off the intel that you've gotten. Those kind of things. Be much more intentional. So if it, even if
Sorry.
that's all right. I love it. Oh, I love I love dogs.
Somebody
Um,
came to the front door.
but all in all, to say is that the people were a lot more intentional, took more time, and they can avoid a lot of the scams. And it doesn't hurt to question people and question everything and anything that you see, especially if it doesn't sound right. But even if it sounds right, you have a right to research everybody who may say, "Hey, I got a job," or even if somebody refers you to a scam job, they are also a criminal as well because they're probably in the ring. And in anything like that, make sure it's somebody that you trust or you feel good about that you can verify they actually do work for a real company and that company and not just some company that they do some good work. And there was a scam like that, and that scam is still going around on Twitter, some LinkedIn as well. I've seen a few of those, a lot of that on Twitter. Somebody will say, "Hey, I know this person, they work for this particular company. I could connect you with them." And they said, "Let's go over to WhatsApp and talk." And that's the one place you don't want to go is a WhatsApp or any messaging type of app where you're off the grid and people can have these and mislead you and lead you down a road you don't want to go down.
That's a good tip. I never really thought. And I always recommend that people apply, directly on the company's website. But even like you said, some unscrupulous person can into that database and steal applicants' information anyway.
Here's a tip when you get let's say we can use Apple. Let's say Apple's one. And you get an email from someone and the email address that they have, you would think it would be spelled the right way. Somebody might put APLE. That's not right. That's not funny, and that's not gonna be the your because a lot of people don't understand how email addresses really work, supposed to coincide with the company's name or somewhat. So you take that and you put it in a search engine, and if that what comes up, and it may come up, "Don't use this address, it's a scam," or there might be an advisory that might show up on Google or Bing or whatever you use saying that this is known to be a scam, or it may come up something completely different that looks different than what you put in. So that's another way that people can check kind of and you would think some people who say, "Oh gosh, that's a common sense." There's a lot of people who fall in or misspelled company names thinking it was right because we think, well, so, well, everybody makes a spelling mistake. I'm not a great speller, so I'm gonna give this person a break. No, because this person's supposed to be a recruiter. That's the part they're supposed to have on right. If they make a mistake anywhere, it's not through their email address.
That's true. Absolutely. So, what are some other job scam warning signs or red flags that we should look out for?
Oh, great question. And there's a bunch of them that I'll give you some quick ones. Um, One is you should be suspicious if you get a call from out of nowhere. If you get a call from out of nowhere and they're saying, you'll be right. And you're going looking at your LinkedIn profile. Most people don't write a great profile or they write barely enough. They say, really? You think I'd be right for this great job? Now, it, it, the mindset of the job seeker, a lot of times, if they've been on a long job search, where a lot of them have 6+ months, they're going to be more vulnerable than somebody who's already working. So that's something keep in mind, depending where you're at. And I think scammers are tech savvy, but they're also great marketers. And they have a lot of information on you than you think that they have, other than your LinkedIn profile, because they watch your posts. They've been looking. You may not have done it on LinkedIn, but on your Facebook page, depending on how public it is, you had a rant saying how hard it was to find a job. So that makes you a perfect candidate for them. So those are kind of things to look out. The other signs, if it's too good to be true, talked about before, taking you off to a messenger app. People are getting scammed, have gotten scammed through Zoom even. People have used Zoom to have these meetings. They don't use the video part, they just use the messaging part.
Uh,
Or
okay.
they'll start to have these Zoom or these WhatsApp or whatever the messenger might be. They start to have the interview. Of course, they're going to pass. Nobody fails these things. Can you imagine failing a scam interview? Right? I wonder what that looks like. If you were watching, you failed a scam interview, let me know. There's another road go down. Something else is asking when they ask for personal information too early.
Yeah,
Nobody should be asking you for your social security number before you have an interview.
right. Or your
I
bank
mean,
account
or
information
your
or
bank account information. I'm just saying they may have your phone number. By the way, I would use a Google Voice number,
okay.
especially. And there's also a service called YouMail.
Okay.
YouMail is awesome for those with the Android. Doesn't work on Apple products,
Okay.
Android products, and other phones outside of Apple, where they can give you a number you can use to mask your real number. So nobody
Er,
won't have that. And I recommend that part of it because if you give somebody your real number, they can use that to build some other apps like Cash app and Zelle app with your number. And that could be a little problematic down the line. Um,
right.
and we already talked about strange email addresses, websites. Websites are supposed to be perfect,
Right.
especially if they claim to be NVIDIA. NVIDIA doesn't have a single mistake on their web. If they do, you wouldn't know it. Or they rush you and say, I know that we have something posted on our website. However, this is a special circumstance. We want to get this position filled right away, not with the little bit of information they're asking from you, other
Right.
than your personal information.
Yes.
So those are some of the scams I have on, and if I can venture right here, I write the job scam report on Substack
Yes.
and go and there's a document with 19 different signs that you can look at. I'll be updating that on a regular basis. That is under a subscription, so you would have to subscribe to get that. But
Okay.
all to say is that you can also, look elsewhere to get signs. Uh,
Okay.
I try to keep it in real time. You update it.
Okay. So I imagine AI has made it even harder to spot a job scam, correct?
Yes, it has. And a lot of people are thinking that these tools that are out here are all working as far as an AI tool that would track AI data. And there's not one that's foolproof yet. That's
Okay.
still a long way off. So I
Oh,
think people will need to understand that they will need to do the groundwork in the other areas to verify that these are AI is only dealing with the communication. They can't deal with in real time whether a company is still hiring or not, or whether that person that's presenting this to you is a real person associated with the job. Those things you're going to have to do that work.
I noticed I had an email from someone recently and they were
Mhm.
asking me to do some weird financial stuff. And I'm looking at the email and everything was spelled perfectly and it was correct grammar. And I'm like, typically you can spot it because there is a misspelling or some other little giveaway in
Mhm.
what you're reading. But this was so well written. It was so convincing. Fortunately, I knew it was a scam.
Right.
Sure, they used AI. I'm sure it was somebody over in another country concocted this scheme and used AI to write this perfect email to me.
Mhm.
Fortunately, I was like, "Okay,
But
this
there's a human factor to that, and I've seen a bunch of those. If you when you see this writing is perfect and all that, the next question I have to ask myself is that, do people really talk this way? They they will use and it's hard to describe. You gotta look at a whole bunch of them. But wait a second. I have recruiter friends, they don't talk that way, or they wouldn't relate in this kind of way, in a way that kind of that's non-personable is one way to describe it. Is that you're talking about me?
right,
And we're talking or you're talking about your company that way, and you go look it up, and you can also ask the company, go and ask the company, "Did you send this communication?" That's probably the best way to really unveil the whole scheme. But
exactly,
that's another part is that what would I present something like this? Barring the grammar and the spelling, all that can be perfect. But recruiters are generally they're a little bit more personal, direct. They
right,
don't have a lot of time to waste in giving you all this whole thing. And you can always go, especially when most of them are on LinkedIn, you can go and check to see if they've made an announcement of that particular or you could connect with them to see if they really have, because LinkedIn profiles have verification now where they've gone through the two-step verification. That's probably better than any other social network that I could think of. And if you know something better, please feel free to let me know.
okay. Basically, if you have fallen victim to a job scammer, what can you do to protect yourself?
There's a lot of things that people can do and do to protect themselves after they've been scammed. One thing is to definitely report it. You can go to ic3.gov. That is an internet crime site that's from the government,
Okay,
and you can report it there. The second part is we talked about before, all the entities that you may have given them your private information, so security, phone number, bank information, etc. Lord knows, should you give them medical information, that becomes a whole nother story.
oh boy.
Right. But you want to report to those entities as well. If
Okay,
you were approached on LinkedIn, you want to notify LinkedIn or Twitter or X as people call it, or Facebook, wherever you approach. That's these are cyber crimes that the government is considered very serious.
okay,
So they're trying to get to the bottom of it, have realistic expectations, but you're not done there after you've done the reporting. You need to look at your computer. If you've gone to one of their sites or opened any of their attachments or anything that's connected with them, you should run your security scan suite. Hopefully, you have the scan suite to be able to open these things because they may have or they may have given you a gift of spyware, malware, virus, things of the layer to you want to avoid because those have tracking systems that are in it and they can see what you're doing. So no matter what you do, you're going to be tracked. If you're conducting private information or private transactions online in public spaces, stop it.
right.
And that's a basic that people forget about in this particular environment. Yes, Starbucks is great Wi-Fi, some greater than others, but if you use a VPN, which is virtual private network, that will help deter some of that.
Okay.
Not guarantee, it will just help deter some of that. But you want to start running your scans, SCANs on a regular basis,
Right.
especially after that.
Okay.
So that you continue to protect your computer and your private information along the way.
Yes.
And those are some of the things, and it may vary from person to how deep that they've actually gotten into it. Some people don't fill out application. They think, "Well, I avoided it," but if you open up the attachment,
Mm.
you're subjected. If
Right.
you've gone to the site and then left immediately, you're still vulnerable. Don't take any of that for granted because they are what I try to say. A lot of times they get you before they got you. Want your information. A lot of times you're just verifying information that you are the person they have information on. But what's missing is that those personal data that will help them get jobs, duplicate your identity, steal other people's information to extort products from other people, all kinds of things. So you want to avoid that as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, if you have fallen victim, you need to notify the credit bureaus as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And you're, especially if you see that one charge, and even if the bank takes it off, you want to make sure that you contact the three that might be involved because
Okay.
that may not be their first try.
Okay.
They might be trying again and again.
Good
If
point.
if you gave them that information, they know. So you may need to have your credit card checked, or most apps these days, if you're using it to pay, you can also freeze that card. And
Right.
you can freeze your credit report as well.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good tip as well. Thank you so much for being my guest today, Mark. This is really so much information, and it's really vital that everyone understands how susceptible we can be to these scams. So I really appreciate your time.
Not a problem. I love doing it here. This is very important as the voice of job seekers is I've got to take this on to see where it leads. So I'm still learning.
Yeah.
Therefore, I am still learning, and scammers, they're using there's a term that is used as I'm trying to think of what the term is. So I said it earlier, social engineering.
Yes.
And what they do is depending on your behaviors, they're able to get personal information or get you started down the road. And I just want to share this little bit of information. I think this will give people a better idea of what's and how things actually work with scammers. The social engineering basically they're using sophisticated tech schemes to manipulate you to get you to give their personal information,
Okay.
and they're using some your natural propensities to do it. So, of course, applying the jobs are one, but there's also the curiosity factor as well. And I don't know if you're familiar with Frank Abagnale. He's
Um,
the guy that they made the movie about Catch Me If You Can.
oh, okay.
He's a security expert these days. He always, you could catch most of his stuff on YouTube. He doesn't do the social networks from what I could tell. Because I tried looking for his LinkedIn profile, couldn't find one, but he doesn't need one. Some of the Fortune 500 companies that he consulted and the training as far as not getting people to give up private company information, eh, he would drop or strategically place or misplace, depending on how you look at it, drives. And somehow it's communicated that this is dirty information about the company. So you would drop these scores of them. And if people pick them up and put it in their drive of the computer, they fail.
Oh, no. Yes. Yes.
And they fail.
Yeah.
And that's a good way to for him. It proves that people really do need the training. And the company has already figured that out, but It shows how bad it is and how people, again, use your natural inclination and say, "Oh, I got the goods on my company." You got you.
Mhm.
And so that's why they are not using, say, "Hey, I'm a scammer and I need your information to complete this task to bring back to the ringmaster." They're using jobs as that bait at USB. And
Mm.
they know that even though you don't know what's in it or what's in it for you, they know that they're going to get something from it eventually because for them, it's a numbers game.
Right.
You have 40,000, a database of 40,000. If they can only get 1,000, that could mean for life. They're set. They, like I said, they get you before they got you.
Exactly. Yeah. So what's the best way for our audience to get in touch with you, Mark?
Contextually, I want to be right. Even though you see the voice of job seekers on the side, you can go there and I talk about scam some, but I have a dedicated community on Substack. It's Mark Anthony Dyson dot Substack substack.com. You
Okay.
go there, subscribe. I have a newsletter that comes out that right now goes to more than 3,000 subscribers, and you get updates on scams. And I plan to even update a little bit more frequently now, being that there's an uptick in concern. Please go subscribe there. If you really want to get into it, there's a paid subscription version where you can get really deep and get more information and get deeper into it because I think the deeper people go, the more informed. That's how we're fighting the scams now.
Right.
The knowledge and awareness, and that will help people make better decisions.
Absolutely. Information is power. Well,
Yep.
thank you again, Mark. To my audience, I want to thank you for tuning in today. Don't forget to watch and comment on the earlier episodes of Young Professionals Career Catalyst on my YouTube channel. And tune in next week for the next episode of Young Professionals Career Catalyst.